Adam Show. Well, hey there, boys and girls, ladies and gents, theys and theirs. This is Tara Shapansky from the Polish-American Brotherhood and Adam Francisco from Be Free My Sheeple. And you're listening to the T&A Show, the Tara and Adam Show. Well, hey there, boys and girls, ladies and gents, theys and theirs. This is Tara Shapansky from the Polish-American Brotherhood and Adam Francisco from Be Free My Sheeple. And you're listening to the T&A Show, the Tara and Adam Show. Well, hey there, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the T&A Show. And I am joined in studio by my co-host, Adam Francisco.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our channel. We are so happy to be here for, I believe this is episode number 11, season 2 of the T&A Show. And today we got a special guest, and I'm going to let Tara do the introduction today.
Well, thank you, Adam. Well, it's great to be back in studio, and because it's been a while since we've been together, and we have a very special guest joining us today. So the headline of this week, Ghislaine Maxwell guilty on 5 out of 6 counts, and we're joined by Kristan T. Harris to give us an update of what he witnessed while he was there, witnessing the trial and reporting from it. Kristan, if you can give us an introduction about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I guess the most recent things I've been up to, I was a witness in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. That's where I met Tara there. And, also I caught viral footage at the Kenosha Unrest. I do talk radio, a program called The Rundown Live, which airs 5 days a week. I've been doing that for about 10 to 12 years, and I'm most well known as a prominent citizen journalist that continues to go viral that the mainstream media can't avoid sourcing because I always seem to get the shot. So above and beyond that, most recently, there was a crowdsource looking to send me to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And we raised over $6,500 roughly to send me there and to cover all the expenses because local people wanted a independent journalist there, not somebody who is slighted on the right or the left, not somebody that's probably much like you out there that goes there to the trial every day, gets the information and disseminates it through our website, therundownlive.com, which is a citizen journalist run platform of citizen journalists throughout the nation. And most recently, today I was on the Glenn Beck show. Give you an idea, yesterday I was on the Owen Schroyer War Room show. I've been on the BBC, I've been on CBS, I've been on multiple national platforms discussing different situations, including the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, including the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And I'm also well known for my police accountability and writing for Cop Block for many years, which was a very prominent and if not the largest police accountability website in the early 2000s, 2010s.
Kristan, what got you into doing independent journalism?
Oh, geez. It's kind of a lengthy story, but we can give it. In about 2009, I was top retail sales manager as #1 in a Fortune 500 company. And for some reason, things didn't work out with that. And I was looking for work, and I was doing the Craigslist thing back when they still had, I think Craigslist is still around. I don't really check or go on that website. I don't have any use for it. But I was looking for some ways to make some money to help pay some bills. And there was a posting about independent lawyers looking to hire fraud investigation in the 2011 primary. And this is a couple years later after I was released from, well, it was probably right around when I stopped working for that company. And I inquired about it, and it turned out to be fraud investigation in the Republican GOP primary in 2011. And me being a punk rocker, I didn't like politicians at all. I think government was dumb. I wasn't really a big fan of it either way. I always seen it as an encroachment and an authoritarian figure, although a lot of people feel like it's something to help you out a lot of times, which it can be. I get it. So I took the opportunity, and it turned out that the individual that was being frauded was an individual by the name of Ron Paul. And we were pulling the polling tabs and doing the research, and I believe in court they were ended up being able to prove the fraud, but they said since the GOP primaries are private, they're not taxpayer funded like the presidential election. Technically, the GOP can say whoever they want wins, and there's nothing really you can do about the fraud on that level. I wanted to know what this person, Ron Paul, what he was saying and why he had to be frauded. And I started to realize that he seemed like an average person, a person that was for the average man. And then he said some things that caused me to have some cognitive dissonance. Like, for example, ending the war on drugs, no victim, no crime, bring home all the troops. Why are we the policemen of the world? And things about blowback with 9/11 and things that I never really even thought about. So I went in 2011 to go see Ron Paul speak at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, in front of 6,000 people. And he said, one of the things he said is we need independent journalists, more liberty-minded journalists in the media. Write your local papers, get into the blogs, start blogging, doing these kind of things. And that's exactly what I did. As I went home and I wrote my local City Now, which was Cudahy Now, SouthMilwaukeeNow.com. And they gave me a blogging position, and I went on to be the #1 traffic blogger of any City Now site of all time. And during when the Journal Sentinel obviously acquired and did some rebranding, we parted ways. They no longer said I fit the format of what they were looking to do, even though I was probably bringing them more revenue than most of their accredited paid journalists. Keep in mind. So that's when I met Mike Pachesney and we started the Rundown Live, therundownlive.com, and it's since 2012. It's really been a power horse. At one point, we were getting 4.5 million reads a year. And we were beating out all the national networks until Google invented their pesky artificial algorithms to downvote anything they deemed fraudulent or fake news, which, as we know, a large amount of the Russian collusion people who were banned were independent media that was literally, draining the financial system of the mainstream media, and most people are getting their news from places like the Rundown Live, Natural News, InfoWars, the Free Thought Project, even leftist independent sites like Raw Story or Anti-Media, and there's plenty of other examples of this. People just preferred to get their news from someplace other than the mainstream media. So the Rundown Live ended up, we were beating out all our local syndications, CBS, we were beating out in traffic, and it was amazing. We were a 1 hour show once a day now, or once a day, 5 times a week. Now we're a show that's two hours a day, 5 days a week, and we're on KGRA radio in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it was Hudson Valley, New York, and I'm out of Milwaukee here. So that's kind of the long story short. I've covered over 150 protests. And that's kind of how I got involved in these things. I started wondering, why would our government lie to us about things? I started reading about, I guess it really started really interesting story. I was bartending at the time, and I still bartend occasionally. And one of my buddies filed a FOIA, and he said, bro, you got to check this out. Did you know in the 1930s, the government put mercury and cyanide in the alcohol to track where the mob was bootlegging it, and resulted in almost 30,000 Americans dead. And then they used that to say alcohol was killing people in order to push the prohibition. And that really rocked my world. At that point, I realized government, if they're willing to do this, what is it on the board? 9/11, Operation Northwoods, Remember the Maine, Pearl Harbor. You just start thinking about all these things, and you start to learn about Operation Mockingbird and the disinformation projects, and Operation Flickr, and all these different things that are government and perverted government, and MK Ultra, and it just goes on and on and on, that we've been lied to, or they've used to actually target American citizens. And so this made me frustrated, and along the way, I found a passion for writing articles, for covering news, and that's brought me to where I am today, where I was on Glenn Beck. It's been a long, winding road, but it's been a great journey, and I have to say, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I feel I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be a slave in retail, even though the money was nice and I was not living on a shoestring budget. At least I know my heart's in the right place, and I don't have any regrets for what I'm doing.
Absolutely. That's the same passion that led me to doing what I'm doing. And also that feeling of being lied to is why, I started taking to the streets and just first witnessing what was going on, and then started just with my cell phone to be recording it. And then have continued forward, much like yourself. Like, especially like, I had met you in Kenosha during the Rittenhouse trial, and with that trial, we saw how important it was for citizen journalists, and so a number of citizen journalists were called to the stand, including yourself, and it's largely because the footage that citizen journalists were able to capture and bring forward, which led to proving Rittenhouse's innocence, which, unfortunately in today, it's supposed to be you're innocent until proven guilty, but we see how justice by the mob isn't necessarily that case. Can you talk through a little bit about your experience being a witness on the Rittenhouse trial?
Well, yeah. So within an hour or so after Jacob Blake was shot, I headed down to the scene of the incident where law enforcement was trying to consolidate the crime scene so they can do an investigation. And the crowd started to get really violent. They started throwing bricks through squad cars, jumping on squad cars, getting in law enforcement's face. One law enforcement officer was knocked out by a brick. And I caught that on video. And it was a video that went viral that got 15, 20 million views. And everyone around the world was airing that video. I never realized mainstream media could just steal my stuff like that. But luckily, I ended up signing up with a licensing company. And I believe that they went after everyone for that. I'm not quite sure. I don't really keep in touch with them that much. But, the president of the United States saw that video. Donald Trump came to Kenosha and he mentioned that video when he spoke with law enforcement. And it blows my mind that a citizen journalist could capture that video. Not to mention, I had the most extensive coverage of Kyle Rittenhouse. I was probably the closest to him throughout the entire event than any other journalist or reporter. Although there are people who caught key footage, I had the initial meet and greet, and a lot of people identified who the shooter was based off of my video. It also included volatile coverage between the armed citizens and the protesters who thought that they were counter protesters when they were really there to protect property. And so those interactions were used throughout the court case. I also caught viral video of the law enforcement handing out water bottles. Maybe you saw that if you were out there watching the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. But being called on the witness stand, I kind of expected it. And when it didn't happen, I felt relieved. And then I was sitting in the courtroom, I believe it was on Wednesday of the first week, and they were using my video extensively the couple days before. And the judge did not allow Thomas Binger to use the audio because he said my narration is hearsay. And he said, and then he goes, well, sir, with respect, we could just subpoena him and he could be here and he could just tell us what he's going to tell us in the video anyways. He goes, well, then the defense said, well, you could subpoena him. He's 10 feet behind you. And Binger didn't know that I was behind him. And about a half an hour later, I got some texts from the New York Times and the Washington Post. And one of them must have called and let him know that I was sitting in the courtroom because I got tapped on the shoulder. And then I was sequestered for the rest of the day. And then they allowed me back in the courtroom because I don't think they planned on calling on me. But then the following Monday, the prosecution called on me. They asked me if I could review my video and tell me if I saw Joseph Rosenbaum in there, because the claim is that Rosenbaum threatened Kyle Rittenhouse, which I did, I didn't have in video, but I did witness. And if it's not on video, then it's all hearsay, in my opinion, for the most part, So my video was very grainy because I don't have a blue check mark on my name on Facebook, so I can only download my videos in 480p. However, law enforcement can get it at 1080p, which is what I was streaming at. And so when I reviewed my video multiple times looking for Joseph Rosenbaum, who told Kyle Rittenhouse he was going to gut him, and people said, hey, we're going to go burn down the other car lot. Let's go get that other car lot. That's why Rittenhouse probably head down there. And Rosenbaum threatened him, saying he's going to gut him. And, basically the prosecution said, well, if he was there, Harris would have him in his video because he was with Rittenhouse almost the whole night, or within range, a lot more so than anyone else. And that's the moment when Balch and Rittenhouse claimed that those threats were made. So I took the witness stand after watching my grainy video, which I did not see Rosenbaum. I personally looked at it very carefully, almost frame by frame, and I just couldn't make it out. And that's because I had a 480p version. And I took the stand and I was very honest. They tried to trick me into saying that the guy who told him that fuck around and find out actually, he meant that he was going to load up the protesters with bullets. And I said, that's not what he said. He kind of tried to trick me into some wordplay and having me interpret things and go along with things that weren't correct. And I kind of like stood up against that and just I said, that's not what I heard. Then there was an objection. And then they, basically cross-examined me. So the moral of the story is on the final statements and the closing statements on the last day, the prosecution brought this up, that Rosenbaum was nowhere in my video. There was no threat. Kyle Rittenhouse was being a vigilante, and he actually provoked Rosenbaum, who really didn't need any provocation. He said, was that he flipped over your porta potty, setting up construction cones on fire, dumpsters on fire, saying shoot me, telling people you can't wait to go back to jail or wants to go to jail. And he didn't need much provocation, but he said that Harris said that he didn't see him there. He wasn't even there. And so as a dagger, the defense, their rebuttal, they showed the video and they paused it and they said, the prosecution has had this video as long as we have, and there was Rosenbaum with a chain in his hand, standing exactly where Kyle said, and they had a 1080p clear as day picture of it, which I did not have access to because I, obviously don't have the blue check mark in law enforcement. I was able to acquire that from Facebook somehow.
That's crazy. Tara had a similar issue with YouTube a few, was it a year ago almost? The New York City incident? Oh, when was that?
Almost a year ago, back in January.
Yeah, she was live streaming on YouTube when she was being attacked by, the radical left wingers. And I went on YouTube to try to download the clip in real time for her. And somehow, I don't know how YouTube did this, but the 4-minute clip where Tara was attacked and the police told her, get away from us, stand 6 feet away, was removed from the YouTube stream. It was very strange. It was almost like somebody went and intentionally cut this clip. But luckily, I found the clip on a Russian website. But same situation it was like a 480p version. It was not the 1080p that Tara was streaming at. So we've seen that happen before on these platforms.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the end of the story. Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted, and because of citizen journalism as a collaboration, not as a competition, Kyle Rittenhouse was set free. The evidence was collected, but that takes us to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, which was a very different trial. And I've been out there in New York for which I call medical authoritarian hell. I've been there for about 4 weeks, and I just recently got home after Christmas. And it's a very different trial where everything is hearsay. Everything is testimonies from victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, painting pictures of grooming interviews of young girls at the age of 13. Nadia Borlin, who is now the Days of Her Life star. Katie, who is a famous model, and she hangs out with royalty, and it was caught in, I think, trying to sell somebody in the royalty cocaine in a setup. Then there was Carolyn, who was a heavy drug user, and at the young age of 14 was giving Jeffrey Epstein massages and fellatio and having sex and orgies and being, he offered to fly her around, but she said her mom would never let her fly out to someplace exotic with Epstein because she's only 14, and then you had Maria Farmer, who worked for Jeffrey Epstein, has been tweeting some of my articles because we are the only spot, the Rundown Live, that has the transcripts of the victims, Annie Farmer, Katie, Jane Doe, and of course Carolyn, as well as the Butler and the Kelly McGuire transcripts, which detail not only the victims of abuse, but also support the collaboration of testimonies that to paint a very similar story of grooming, of grooming these young girls and desensitizing them to the point where they don't feel that they're doing anything wrong by having sex with Epstein and being involved in orgies.
Did they not live stream the trial because of the nature of protecting the victims?
No, federal cases are they're not allowed to have any electronics in the building for federal cases. R. Kelly wasn't televised. El Chapo wasn't televised. They just don't allow any electronics in the building. So states allow it occasionally. That's why Kyle Rittenhouse was televised. Gotcha. But federal cases, they don't typically, very rarely do they televise those. But what was really weird is, Matthew Russell Lee, the guy from Inner City Press, he was constantly writing the judge, asking him to open up the call line so people could call in and listen to testimony, and she continuously denied it.
Why was that?
No reason. No reason was given.
Yeah, I remember they were sharing the call-in line on Twitter, and people
Yeah, that
were
was a
trying,
fake
and no one
call-in
could
line.
get through.
Yeah, that was a fake call-in line. That call-in line was for the original hearing, and I think it was to set the dates of the hearing and all that stuff. That's what that was from. Is from back in September, and people were aggregating it like, "Oh, this is currently the call-in line." It was just basically fake clickbait, which there was a lot of misinformation about this trial. Tim Kennedy, whoever the UFC fighter is, he said media is barred from the room. This is no media allowed in this trial, which was fake, false. I called the courthouse and verified that media would be allowed before I headed out there. And there's a lot of misinformation, just like there was like around the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. And it's funny how both the right and the left tend to not fact check themselves and aggregate misinformation quite often.
What are some key points you feel that were misinformation that you, in your experience being there, can set the record straight?
Some of the Blue Anoners were saying that Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't in the courthouse. That's like right up there with Kyle Rittenhouse being green screened. Like that was a big thing. And when I go on interviews, people are always like, let me set the record straight. Was Ghislaine Maxwell in the courtroom? Yes. Yes, Ghislaine Maxwell, Glenn Maxwell, Ghislaine, or they use different names when they talk to her too. Every person has a different thing that they call her. The girls call her Glenn. Some of the lawyers call her Ghislaine. Some people call her Ghislaine. Some people call her Ghislaine. It depends. It's weird. It's like an MK Ultra trick where they keep calling her a different name. I don't get it, but nobody seems to get her name right.
Which was the count that she was not found guilty of? She was found guilty of five out of 6.
Yeah,
enticing a minor to travel over borders, I believe.
Wow.
It was, I think, number 2. She get charged with that. Like, how do you almost have a clean sweep? You know, and that one charge is like, well, not that one. It just seems very, very, very strange to me.
That was the wild one, right?
Well, I can explain it. So the defense was a $7 million defense, and they were really surgical in what they did. So quite often in these flight logs, they didn't use the girl's first name. Instead, they used their initials. And they could say NB for Nadia Borlin could be anyone. We don't know who NB is because it isn't her full name. So literally there is only one flight log that had her full name, and all the rest were initials. So therefore, those were thrown out. So there's really no, like, unless they have the full name of these females, of these individuals, it was thrown out because you can't prove that the initials are those people. Although JE was Jeffrey Epstein and GM was Ghislaine Maxwell, and everyone accepted that, it was all the additional people that they used initials for, usually, that were thrown out and not used as evidence.
Gotcha. What was the most shocking thing in this trial for you?
Being in New York and seeing how people are scared shitless. Like, I would like to say the trial itself, but New York is I've never seen anything like it. People are afraid of their own shadow in New York. I can't tell you how many people I saw wearing not one mask, not 2 masks, but 3 or 4 or 5 masks on their mouth because they are that scared of the good old coronavirus. And if you don't wear a mask, they want you to feel miserable. Like they're so scared and they're angry that you're not scared and living in fear. I got kicked out of about 8 or 9 places because I didn't have a heart attack passport. I literally had to work off of a website that had a list of businesses that did not discriminate against people who were not vaccinated. And then I could go and stay at those places. I ended up staying in Jersey City, where it's free. Yep. It's right across from the World Trade Center, yep. And there are no mass lockdowns. It was wonderful. But New York is literally a medical authoritarian shithole. Did you see what they needed? 10 cops to deal with a 5-year-old.
Yeah, that was embarrassing and traumatizing for that child.
You know, I will say, like, we live here in Florida, and after about 2 weeks to a month of the pandemic, it's been pretty much over down here. We've been pretty much living normally. I spent a lot of time this year in Mexico. And if you go to some of the cities like Mexico City, It's the same situation as New York. Everybody's masked up outdoors, whether they're exercising, running. It's very, very strange. And what happens is when you are surrounded by this fear, it starts to rub off on you. The negative energy becomes contagious. And it was the first time in a long time where I actually started feeling a little nervous about COVID and scared about COVID. It was and I hated that feeling. So I did not stay in Mexico City very long. And that's why I will not be going to New York or LA anytime soon.
Or Chicago or Philadelphia, spreading. And I wanted to ask you guys, do you think that these mandates are going to go away once they put them in place? Do you think COVID's going to just disappear and they're going to say, like, no more vaccine passports? No, we're going to need it to cross state lines. We're going to need your flu vaccines. They're just going to add vaccines to the Real ID 2020. That was the plan all along by Dr. Blue Screen Bill Gates, excuse me. You know, the guy with no college degree who crashes computers and wants you to get your Windows update and your vaccine update. You know, right. It's just a clever plan. It's just Dr. Blue Screen is his name, just like Dr. Strange Glove Fauci, you know.
Hey, remember, Bill Gates made his money selling the virus and then selling the antivirus software. So this is kind of similar. Bill Gates is treating humans the same way like a computer program, you know, with
Norton's did this. They would... Norton's would, you know, in college, kids would create viruses, and then Norton's would create the antivirus, but they would pay for the college courses. The kids would do that.
Yep. As far as when is this going to end, it was in the news today, and I think Tim Pool spoke about this. Joe Biden just invested $137 million into a new factory that's not going to be completed until 2024. And it's COVID.
What's the factory?
It's to do COVID testing strips. So it's a factory to produce COVID testing strips, and it won't be done until 2024. So you don't build a factory like that for 1 month of use. You build a factory like that where you expect years of use out of it. So Tim Pool's theory is that they have this all scheduled out until 2026, that we're going to be dealing with COVID variants, pandemics, testing, mandates, lockdowns, all this stuff. So what I'm going to tell my audience, I'm going to plead with everybody, you got to get involved in voting locally, state level, local level, school level. We need to vote for people that are going to be on the side of freedom and anti-mandates, because it's going to get crazy if we don't do that.
I think, Adam, when you got back from Mexico, they gave you a take-home test.
Yes.
And I thought what was interesting is you said that you had a Bluetooth in the results.
Yeah, so they gave me a take-home test at the airport, which I ultimately ended up using when I, test myself for Omicron this holiday season. And I tested positive.
The common cold, yes.
Yeah, the common cold. But I had to test it through a Bluetooth app, which synced up to the analyzer. So whoever this data goes, they have all my information now. And they were probably tracking me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think because that's the thing with all the free tests that are offered, like our data is being sent.
Nothing's free. That's the cost.
Nothing's free. Versus like you brought me a take-home test that you purchased at the store. That one I didn't have to zoom in the results or anything. So maybe that's a little bit more reliable. But yeah, isn't Biden has an initiative that he's going to be sending like 500 million take-home tests out to the American people?
January, they're expected to be delivered by, which is kind of pointless because it's going to be after the Omicron surge. So. Thanks again, Joe Biden. Really appreciate it, what you've done for this country.
Yeah, we got to stand up now, because once it starts coming there, it's never going to disappear. That's what I've learned. And so when you asked me about the trial, there's a lot of things that were disturbing. The young ages of these girls when they were involved in sex orgies, the grooming process. And the grooming process started with an interview. Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell would go to a summer camp, which is they go shopping for young girls. Interlochen Summer Camp is an elite summer camp for children and teens who have exceptional skills in the arts, meaning singing, drama, painting, musician, maybe the future actresses and actors of the world, the future rock star musicians. And so what they did is they interviewed these girls, and they interviewed Jane Doe, who is also known as Nadia from Days of Our Lives, when she was 13. And they found out that she had a broken home. Her father recently died and was a famous conductor, and Epstein knew him. And, they also found out that they were homeless and that her mom was living in somebody's pool house with 3 friends, and Epstein felt like he could help. And how he could help, boy, I'll tell you what, he was giving her money when she was leaving with the massage money, and it was being used to pay the rent, amongst other things. And he paid for her, like, college and acting classes or whatever the girls needed. But there was all a very similar story where they had, with the exception of Carolyn, that they had some exceptional skill, and Epstein swooped in. They were all broken homes. Carolyn her mother let her do whatever she wanted. She didn't even have to come home or check in. And so she'd be out there, making $300 massaging and banging Epstein. And her and her boyfriend would split it and buy drugs. So Annie Farmer was another story, and she escaped Epstein by locking herself in the bathroom when he came up naked behind her. And what she said is pressed himself into her from behind in the bed that she was sleeping in. And so she didn't know what to do. So she said she had to go to the bathroom. Then she locked herself in the bathroom. And Maria Farmer, Annie Farmer's sister, retweeted the transcript on Annie Farmer that I published on therundownlive.com.
How many victims were there?
They only called upon 4, which is another thing. Why didn't they call upon, Virginia Roberts? Why didn't they get like Sarah Kellen or these other individuals? There's hundreds of girls allegedly that have been abused. In fact, during the jury deliberation, a lot of these females were coming in and waiting for the verdict, hoping and crossing their fingers that Ghislaine Maxwell would be guilty, would come out with a guilty verdict. And there was a while I didn't think it might be that way. They brought in a psychological expert that sounded like something straight out of a MK Ultra, top secret document plan. It was bizarre. And this lady, she worked in false memories, implanting false memories, and memory contamination. And her argument was since these 4 witnesses that were called to the stand communicate with each other, much like you or I, we may go to a party and that I remember things, but there's things I don't remember. And you say, oh yeah, you remember this and this. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I use your memory to fill in the holes of my memory. That's not actually my memory. I forgot what I thought happened there. You filled in that blank and reminded me. So she was trying to express memory contamination. The defense was trying to say that there's no way to verify beyond a shadow of a doubt that memories can be 100% accurate. But at some point, the prosecution, Pomerantz, Cuomo's sidekick there, and probably the only one that showed balls, she came out and said, asked the question, didn't you testify in the Harvey Weinstein trial? And that was the hammer. The judge immediately called a sidebar. I'm surprised that she didn't scold her, but it was one of those things that may have left a lasting impression. Probably wasn't good, what I'd call good, being a good lawyer, but at the same point, it was a strategy to kind of put into people's minds what they were dealing with. And, obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell spent over $7 million. And I'll be honest, the prosecution was outspent, and they looked foolish at many times, but they finished strong. And I think that's what really helped their case in this trial and convicting Ghislaine Maxwell. Now that it's over, though, it's not finished, because even though Epstein and Maxwell were a provider of services, those addicts who are used to using these young girls, and or, in my opinion, it was an initiation process for the elite, right? You go sleep with these underage girls. Guess what? You're in with the cool kids club. You get to be billionaires. You'll be successful in life. They help you out. Just like all the stories we hear about in Hollywood and what we heard with Weinstein and everything else. It seems like more of that scenario. And then they film it. Like Little St. James was rigged with cameras. So you had all these elitists going there. They mentioned Kevin Spacey. They mentioned, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Fidel Castro, the Pope. They had Stephen Hawking. They had all these individuals. And let's not forget Dr. Blue Screen Gates was hanging out with Epstein even after he was charged with raping people, So it just blows my mind that these individuals are there, and there's a demand for this product. There's a demand for the blackmail. So somebody's still providing these services. And now the question is who is, and we should take a look around the world and see, because all these people all kind of hang out together. Even the cultists that traffic women, they all know about each other. They all probably work together. And let's not forget about the government agencies that might have involvement. The Finders cult showed that. Operation Flicker. The MK Ultra Monarch program, where they did trauma bonding to develop sex slaves, so that when they bring out a certain object, women would have multiple personalities and revert back to their 16-year-old self, and then they'd use them to film porno or traffic them to certain people and movie stars and rock stars. This is well-known stuff that has gone on for a while, and I think that's the real question, is why did the judge not allow immunity for testimony, because there would have been testimonies that may have exposed a lot more of this crime. I'm hearing that they're going after people, but they're going after all the girls that helped Gilan traffic. They're not going after the people that actually purchased the trafficking, not all the big names, not the politicians, not the lawyers, not Les Wexner, the head of Victoria's Secret and Unlimited, not Prince, well, we'll see about Prince Andrews, but there's so many of these individuals they could go after. And they're the FBI. They have the dirt on everyone, but they're not. I don't see them doing it. And it's disgusting.
Yeah,
that's why Epstein
brought me to my next question. Do you think that in our society, because since this case involves so many powerful people, are they ever going to see justice?
No, this is a limited hangout, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it comes down to the fact that people that have this much money and this much power and this much pull, they operate by a whole different set of laws, and they can do pretty much, they're immune almost in our society. You know what I'm saying?
We can see that with the mandates even, and mask wearing. Who wears the mask?
Exactly. It's a two-tiered society, and as that famous stand-up comedian said, what was his name? Carlin?
George Carlin.
George Carlin. There's a club, and we're not in it. And I'm happy I'm not in that club, to be honest, because the stuff that these people are doing, allegedly, we got to use that word allegedly, right? Because innocent until proven guilty in America, is truly sickening. And I do hope at some point the truth comes out. But the one thing I will say is, Kristan, so many things that we labeled conspiracy theories for the last 15 years are just falling apart like dominoes. It's unbelievable. Do you know what I'm saying? The chips in the hand is now happening in Sweden. That's a new conspiracy. The RFID chips.
Oh, okay,
that are being installed. Like, that's happening now, and it seems like the Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy really isn't at all. It's really happening. This stuff.
Kristan, what were some of the key points that the defense was going on?
The fact that Ghislaine Maxwell is only being tried because Jeffrey Epstein's dead was their big staple. And the fact that the prosecution did not provide as much, like hard evidence. Out of 40,000 images and videos that they received from Jeffrey Epstein's hard drives and binders full of DVDs and CDs, they chose 40. And they were all like, here's Ghislaine massaging Jeffrey Epstein's foot. Like, here's Ghislaine Maxwell hanging on Jeffrey Epstein on the plane. It wasn't like, here they are in this smashing orgy with these young girls. No, they were very woke, the prosecution. They wouldn't ask any really detailed questions because they were worried about triggering the female witnesses. And, that's what we really wanted. The most nitty gritty stuff we got was from Nadia, where they talked about double-ended dildos and, going ass to ass with a bunch of girls and a bunch of dirty stuff. And obviously how Epstein would bring in other nude girls, and they would have, menage a trois amongst other things, and Ghislaine Maxwell would be there massaging and teaching these girls how to massage them and getting them stripped down, and that was the testimony, and it was very similar amongst all the girls. We didn't really get a lot of the nitty-gritty details. We heard some names, but the other thing the prosecution decided not to do is name names when they could have. There was names that weren't redacted that the judge said, you can list these individuals here, and they said, oh, it's not pertinent to the case, but every time it came to Donald Trump, they sure mentioned it.
Yeah, of course. That's definitely what I was thinking. This is. First of all, we're definitely going to demonetize the stream. Let me just say that.
Put in your CDC warning.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got to put my CDC warning in. So of course, guys, everything we're talking about, you got to refer to the CDC or WHO.int for countervailing medical views. They are the experts.
The official narrative.
For the official narrative, we got to stick to the party's narrative, guys. So there you go.
That could work. You say that in videos?
Honestly, what I've realized is if you say that in the videos and you put it in the description, you get a little bit more wiggle room on YouTube. If you don't say that, then that's when they start to give you strikes. And we try to avoid that here on these two channels. Yeah,
I'm going to have to go ahead and put that in every video tag I put out.
No, it helps. It actually, am I right? It does help.
Yeah, it does.
Exactly.
It's been okay so far.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, go ahead.
This leads me to the drama I had, and what led me to being on the front page of websites like the Free Thought Project and InfoWars and other things. So throughout the trial, we started taking videos of Isabel Maxwell and Kevin Maxwell. When they left, we'd hound them, because Isabel Maxwell was involved with the World Economic Forum, the new Bilderberg. I'd be asking her, so the Bilderbergers, are they meeting anymore? As the World Economic Forum, the new Bilderberg group, Miss Maxwell, I hear you have a position of top technological advancement. Is that synthetic biology? Is that AI? Is that transhumanism? Is that life extension? Did your father steal secrets from the United States and give atomic bomb secrets to Israel using Promise Without an E software or Magellan software? Which, that's all ties and things of that nature. And so at one point, a New York Times reporter was yelling at the guy next to me that he was harassing her because he said, "Oh, you're famous now." And she goes, "You stop harassing her." And I thought she was talking to me. I'm like, "Who is harassing her?" And then she looked at me and she goes, "You are." And I'm like, "I'm just narrating." And I'm like, "You're harassing her with your camera." And she goes, "No, you are." And I'm like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden, Isabel Maxwell takes a picture of me. And the next day, my Airbnb was robbed.
What?
Somebody broke in, and it's on video, broke in my Airbnb and only stole my laptop.
Your laptop? They were targeting your laptop. Wow.
That's crazy.
And I'm not making it up. There's video. You can verify it. The Airbnb owner sent it over to me, and he said, "Yep, they were in there in less than 90 seconds. They knew what they wanted. They were in and out." And I had other things they could have stolen. I had like a fresh bottle of whiskey, never opened. You think if the guy's homeless, he's like, "Hell yeah, whiskey."
I'll open that with you when I come up to Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. And then, we also had marijuana because marijuana was legal in New Jersey, unopened, and it was just sitting on top. He could, if he's homeless, he's taking that, as well as I had $350 pair of V-Moda headphones, which I'm sporting right now. And there was plenty of other electronics in the house. They only took my laptop, which was kind of hidden in the bottom of my luggage, as where everything was sitting on top of a desk, neat and easy to take. It just blows my mind. It's such a coincidence. And I'm calling it coincidence because I really don't know. It might have not been anything, but it might have been there to be used as a threat against me and the Rundown Live, as we've been very damaging to this globalist agenda. We've reached probably tens of millions of people with our articles, if not more. And people listening to the show daily. We're growing daily on KGRA Radio, KGRADB.com. That's our syndication home to John B. Wells, Caravan to Midnight in the evenings. So if you like Coast to Coast, a former Coast to Coast commentator, he's on KGRADB.com. We have a lot of great shows over there. And we're always looking to expand and bring new talent. They're in the middle of reformatting. And that's when they brought me on last year to get a news show on in the morning. So it's not all paranormal, because they want to move away from paranormal all day and just have news in the morning. And then in the evenings, like most AM and FM radio stations, they have their Coast to Coast AM on. They have their Clyde Lewis's and stuff like that on in the evening, Fade to Black with Jimmy Church and all that stuff. So, it's one of those things where I hit it at the right time. KGRA is one of the largest digital broadcasting companies out there, and I've been blessed to be there in the mornings now for over a year. Before that, we were on Truth Frequency Radio, which we were coming home to, and we're going to have multiple syndication. We're growing across the boards. Our listenership is up over 500% in the last month.
Wow. Those are insane numbers.
Awesome.
Damn, good for you, man. Congrats on all the success.
We've been censored by YouTube, though. Like, they've deleted every channel I've ever had, it seems, just about, except for the ones we don't use anymore.
So you have to keep restarting on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to keep restarting. I just moved. I went to Rockfin. We have over 9,000 followers on Rockfin now. And it sure sucks because we had I think we were reaching almost 50,000 followers on YouTube. But it didn't matter, because when I went live, only one person would watch because of all the censorship. Like, we'd have 50,000 followers. Yeah, what's the point?
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, Tara and I are definitely, obviously, when she's on the scene, you get a lot of viewers when you're like real time at the riots and the protests. But yeah, us too. Like, I have 15,000 almost. She's got 11,000, and generally our live streams get maybe 50 people to 100 people. That's it. And a lot of people aren't getting notifications when we go live or anything. That's where they get you.
Yeah, and I've had people message me saying that they were unsubbed to the channel and they've had to resub before. So I mean, they're definitely playing those games. I'm looking forward to Truth Social coming out. We'll see how that works.
Hell yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll see about that though.
Absolutely. I found your video, by the way, online of the brick being thrown at the police officer, and I've never seen that video before. Isn't that crazy? The video.
Yeah, my channel.
I saw that one.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, that had over 15 million views on Twitter. It had like hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, but the channel got deleted. That's just one of many viral videos. The one of the law enforcement handing out bottles of water got millions of views. It's crazy. In our channel, even before this, we had informational videos, mostly on secret societies, on a historical reference, that had millions of views. Some of them are still up there. I was doing 7-minute segments on just like esoteric stuff, like the history of Freemasonry, the history of the Bavarian Illuminati, the history of Skull and Bones, using their own books to describe and educate people. And some of those videos got, 5, 6, 7, 100,000 views. And, it's interesting. It's interesting when you start researching and diving into, this Adam Weishaupt utopianism, which is the United Nations, and where we're going with everything. It's kind of scary, but Kenosha is wild. And the Rundown Live, we're one of the most shadow banned websites out there, not because what we say is fake. It's because what we say is dangerous and people resonate with it, and we grow exponentially quick, so quick that we were beating out all the national networks that they had to cheat in order to beat us and silence us. And so we just moved to new platforms. Look at this. Facebook is no longer the number one, or Google is no longer. Was it Google or Facebook? I think it's Facebook is no longer the number one website in the world. TikTok is. And the reason why TikTok is because they don't censor people. And Facebook can't figure out, YouTube can't figure it out. They're all doing the swipe up and swipe down thing, but it isn't changing. No one's using it. You want to know why? Because the reason why people use TikTok is because they're not censored. And it isn't
I get
funny.
censored on TikTok.
Well, I will say though, in some ways he's right though, because you can find some crazy stuff on TikTok that you can never find that content on YouTube. But while they do some censorship,
men's breasts.
For example,
men's breasts. You can get that on TikTok.
If you identify as a trans woman, you can show your breasts off.
I saw that. I saw like chicks with like, I'm like, why do you have your boobs on? They're like, I identify as a man. I'm like, girl, you better get rid of those tatas. Holy cow!
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe that. It blows my mind. Like, I'm trans financial. Somebody can give me $1 billion because like I identify as Rick.
Exactly.
I'm transvexed.
Right? Yeah, you're transvexed.
Right? If you're going to accept that a man is a girl and a girl is a man based on somebody's opinion, I tell you what, when that person dies and somebody digs up their skeleton in 10 years after they die, or 1,000 years or 50 years or whatever it is, what are the geologists going to say? Are they going to say, oh, this was a trans female? No, they're going to know that was a dude. That's what we genetically are. And so what they basically are is normalizing psychological illnesses and normalizing them, and basically mass hypnotizing our nation into adopting and accepting these things, because many, if not the majority of these trans people and LGBTQ people were molested at a young age. That's something that nobody wants to talk about, but it fits right in with our topic. They had an uncle or a cousin or a neighbor or a mom or a dad that took advantage of them at a young age and sexually abused them. And you'll ask them, I think it's like almost 88% of people in the LGBTQ community were abused by somebody close to them at a young age. How does that impact into their mentality and their sexuality if you're a female and your aunt is playing DJ with you at the young age of 4 or 5, or some dude is playing Oil Well Willie with their kid? That's just messed up. But we have to remember, psychologically that affects them, and they're like, it's just disgusting.
I will say there is some good news, and according to a new study, 75% of Americans do believe there's only 2 genders. And 67% strongly believe that there are 2 genders. So
common sense is winning.
While it does appear, according to left media and all that stuff, that the radical left is winning, when you ask the average American, they're not. The problem is most Americans won't speak up. They're scared and being silenced, and the loud voices are literally, we think that represents all of us, and it doesn't. It's a small percentage of people that are actually truly buying into these crazy narratives. So.
The other thing is that they teach it. They have this gay porn and incestual porn in elementary schools now in the form of books.
Yep.
It's to the point where my state at Waukesha, was reading out of the book, and they were trying to silence her because they were broadcasting the video live. And they were live streaming it. And it was too graphic that they were trying to cover her mouth. And they're like, why are you trying to censor me? It's okay for our children to read, but I can't say it on a live stream. That's how messed up our children's, and it's on purpose. This whole Common Core curriculum, critical race theory, it's there to destroy your children and create activists. You know why? Because they probably don't believe that they'll be alive in 5 years. They want to cull the population by 90%. Their words, not mine. 2009, what was it? Henry Kissinger giving his talk at the World Health Organization, talking about mandatory vaccination, and if we can mandate that, then we can mandate organ transplants and everything else. But it's deemed a false. Those things weren't really said because no one was there, or there's no media at that meeting because it was a eugenics meeting, just like the Good People Club that met in 2009 with Bill Gates talking about how they can depopulate the world. And here we are, whistleblowers from Bilderberg telling Jesse Ventura that Bilderberg wants to depopulate the world by 90%. And then we had these Georgia Guidestones. Like, at what point are we like?
I heard a quote recently: progressives don't have children, they have yours. Have you heard that recently? Because we send them to school, and then the school indoctrinates the children and basically brings them over to the left side. The one thing I will say, though, is conservative generally have more children, from my understanding. And so I think in the future, conservative children will outnumber liberal children, as long as the kids are either homeschooled or given good grounding and strong values. Because otherwise, if we leave it to education system, we're going to have just an army of social activists with different pronouns.
All I'm saying is, if TikTok is the future, we're all fucked.
Although, do you have a TikTok account? Do you have one for your business?
Yeah, it's Kristan T. Harris.
Okay, so you do. Awesome.
We have over 1,000 followers, but half of it is just borderline porno. And there's these girls that are in furry outfits, and they're all like licking things, and they're like, it's just bizarre. The youth, these e-girls, and people, like, when they ask children in school what they want to be nowadays, it isn't like when we grew up, baseball player, or we want to be a movie star. It's no, they want to be social media influencers. That's what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what me and Tara want to be when we grow up, too. I mean, so I haven't
never grown up, so.
Yeah, I have a TikTok, too, and I'm going to look at your content, and I'll do a collab with you. Like, I'll do a duet with some of your videos, because I see you got some videos with 20,000 views. Looks like you have one from the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. You got a 20,000 view there. So the thing is this: as crazy as TikTok is, and as creepy as some of the content is, because it absolutely is.
It's totally creepy.
It is. Ultimately, we need to be there, just because that's where the younger generation is. So
same thing with like on YouTube.
Exactly. It's important for us to put our right-leaning, conservative values there, for them to see.
But we should start investigating other platforms, because Kristan's having a lot of success on all the other platforms too. So
yeah, Rumble, Rockfin, we use both very predominantly. We switched just recently to Rockfin. We've gotten over 26,000 views of that guy burglarizing my Airbnb. There's Rockfin is a great one. I know a lot of people use BitChute, and there's Getter that's like the new Twitter. And people are starting to use those things. They're migrating, and you can tell that Facebook and YouTube are feeling the heat, because they're all starting to look like TikTok. That's what and they don't get it. It's because of the censorship that people are leaving their platforms. They literally wanted everyone to leave. Now that everyone is leaving, they want them back somehow, and they don't know how to do it with their PC woke culture, because that's not what majority of the world is. That's what they want to push. That's the agenda they want to push, and they're pushing that agenda because the globalist think tanks are sitting there and saying that's the best way to destroy America. The rest of the world is laughing at us that we think that there's more than two genders. Do you think that they think there's more than two genders in China? Do you think they think that there's more than two genders in Russia? Do you think that they think that there's more two genders in any African country? No, only in frickin' America we have a bunch of batshit crazy people who are willing to just lay over and take it from behind from a bunch of progressive liberals who are trying to tell them and abuse their kids and make them pedophiles, saying it's okay to have incestuous relationships. Have you ever checked out the pornography industry? It's all like mom and Uncle Steve tag team, their daughter Lisa or something. It's always something really incestual and bizarre. Everything is in the pornography industry right now, and it's disgusting because they're literally planting and grooming your children for incest, for underage sex with adults, daddy bods, and I like dads older, and they're like 16 and 15-year-old girls talking about this stuff now. And now that's what all the porn industry is. It's all like, cousin Eddie is over with Cindy and the stepbrother is here. It's like, come on. It's disgusting and it's repugnant. And we should really be censoring that, kids. We didn't have access to that when I was a kid. You know what we had to do? One kid in the neighborhood had a Playboy and a Hustler that his brother had that he gave him, and he had to bury in his backyard. And we'd all go there, dig it up, and we'd all look at it and be like, "Oh, is that what that looks like?" Now you get, you know. Now it's like hardcore interaction. That the young age of 8 or 9 or 10, any kid at their fingertips have access to pornography, and that's a big issue. It's a huge issue, and we need to deal with it, and sooner than later, because we're going to have a very messed up few generations, knowingly, especially because of the CRT, Common Core curriculum, and pornography. They're hypersexualizing our youth for a reason.
And what are your thoughts about OnlyFans as a platform that's become very mainstream now?
I mean, they want to know why they can't hire any waitresses. It's because they're all on OnlyFans. I mean,
it's true.
Basically, they're legalizing prostitution. So if I have sex with a female and I pay her, that's sentenciable. But if you pay me if you pay to watch me have sex with somebody else, that's legal.
Right. That's crazy.
We got a culture of degeneracy going on.
To be honest, like, I'm a libertarian. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm fully okay with prostitution. I'm not saying that I would want my daughter to be a prostitute. I just don't believe that anyone should go to jail for something they could give away for free that they decide to charge. I think that there's more issues behind the scenes, psychological issues. I don't believe anyone belongs in jail next to rapists and murderers for doing that or selling a doobie. However, I wouldn't want my daughter to be on OnlyFans. I wouldn't want my mother to be on OnlyFans. That's what I thought about TikTok. I'm like, dang, if that was my mom and I was in elementary school and my friends had TikTok and they saw my mom half naked talking about how she likes to, do things like swallow children and everything else. Like, what is that saying? Like, the world is becoming narcissistic. Everyone on TikTok is all about themselves almost. It just blows my mind the direction we're going. And OnlyFans, although it's a very interesting idea that probably started out for a way for like people like you or I to gain fan works, much like Patreon, it has turned into this pornography industry where girls don't, they're finding out that they can make $200-$300 a night just, performing fellatio, masturbating, walking around naked, walking around in their e-girl outfits and doing weird, sexual things and talking dirty. And basically it's the new phone sex ideology. It's like everything's OnlyFans. Back in the day, you used to call in from a cell phone to talk to some lady that of a commercial you saw at like 3 a.m. for a good time. Oh,
yeah. It's crazy. Like, there's so many men that can afford, the $5-10 microtransaction that it costs to see these girls do these acts. So if you think about it, a woman is literally selling her body for $5 in some cases, right? The thing that works in her benefit, though, is there's thousands of men willing to spend that $5. It adds up to a really, really good income. But on an individual level, she's basically saying, oh, you give me a $5 bill, you could see my entire body. That's crazy.
Yeah.
For $5?
It makes me think of also how, like, even in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, how you said that the people that they're going to be going after are basically almost like the victims themselves, as opposed to the pimps and the pushers and everything. That's the same thing as when you're going after prostitutes as opposed to the pimps and the Johns.
Right.
Is it really going to solve anything by going in one direction? And instead, you're punishing those who are actually the more vulnerable.
Right.
As opposed to those who are doing the exploitation.
Correct.
Right. And so I think that's just a big note. I think that it's disgusting. However, I'm not saying anyone belongs in jail or it should be illegal. I'm just saying that so many people have access to this. Back in the day, occasionally women would go out with men for dinner and the guy would spend $100-$200, go out to dinner, have a good night. And occasionally there would be the, you'd have the after bar at your house. And now it's just like OnlyFans. Everyone's cyber stalking and they're losing human touch. They're losing reality to having interactions with humans. And when they do, it seems to be hypersexualized, and I'm disappointed in that. And if you look at the Common Core curriculum, critical race theory, it's all there and it's all built in as part of that in order to do that for our youth, to build this industry for all these predators. It's like they're literally catering this predator class towards these younger girls and grooming them in mass scale. it's like mass grooming is what I look at it as. But I mean, look at Jenna Jameson. She talks about, being groomed and all this stuff. And, she was dating Manson, and who knows if she was trafficked. But, just letting you know, just thinking about it, it's pretty interesting. And, we need to be aware of this. We need to protect our children. There's nothing more than what we care about than our children. That was the reason why January 6th happened, because a lot of really misinformed people thought that there was a lot of child trafficking going on. And that's not a bad reason, but it also, if you're misinformed, believing things from a baker in some shit forum who takes breadcrumbs and makes some shit cake and information, and that's the information you use to plant seeds in your brain, you're going to grow GMO crappy crops in your brain, and you're going to have like this misinformation. That's why listening to shows like this and the Rundown Live are so important, because we deal with the cognitive dissonance. We help plant healthy, organic seeds in your brain so you can grow positive ideas and change this world, because we have enough of these crackhead, shitty people that are out there, these blue anoners, the Q anoners, all the same type of meathead, except one's left and one's right, and they're all full of crap. Not saying that there isn't real conspiracies, but in reality, when it comes down to it, you gotta like, the gatekeepers were removed, and that's the result. The mainstream media is at fault for people going to these shit forums, because they banned all the gatekeepers and independent media like Mike Adams, Alex Jones, me, other individuals throughout the networks who are no longer on radio. Unless you call Google and YouTube every day, like Tim Pool probably does. He probably has a person at YouTube every day who messages him what words he can say and cannot say.
Right. Yeah, he definitely has a contact there. Because of some of the things he says, I'm surprised he gets away with it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But he does have a moderator or a person there that he deals with. We don't.
We don't have access.
No, I actually they gave one of my videos a strike about 3 weeks ago, and let me tell you exactly what I said. I said in my video, the election was not stolen, and anybody who thinks it was is crazy. That's what I said, and they gave me a strike for election misinformation. So I said exactly what you wanted me to say. How is it misinformation? And they said, it is what it is. So I kept demanding, show me a quote or show me a timestamp. And after 4 back and forths, they finally went in, reviewed it, and then they overrode it. But it was a bullshit strike from the beginning, and it took a lot of effort. If I just laid down my belly, I would have had a strike on my account for no reason.
Right. And that's just it. And, you got to do those things. You got to go after them, and you got to push it. But that being said, guys, I got another interview coming up, and I want to say thank you guys for bringing me on tonight. If you guys want to check me out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kristan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys can find me on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher. Just search therundownlive.com. Our show airs daily, 5 days a week, from 11 a.m. Central Standard Time to 1 p.m. For Eastern, it's 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific, it's 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. Just search The Rundown Live. Feed your brain. Tune in every once in a while. Tomorrow we have Gennady Storyalov. He's the head of the Transhumanist Party. He's the main, I think he's the president of the Transhumanist Party. We're going to get into techno-optimism and the positives and negatives of all these technological advances, from AI to cyborgs to life extension to weather modification. You name it, we're going to dive into synthetic biology, robots, all that stuff. If you guys are interested, that will be tomorrow. And I got to have you guys on the show as we are growing and blowing up. Of course, Tara, I met you and I appreciate you. And definitely got to have you both on the show, and it should be a good time. So thanks again, guys, for having me on the program. Kristan T. Harris. Find me on Twitter, Kristan, T as in Thomas, and last name Harris, Harris. You can find us. We do have a YouTube, Rundown Live, without the in front of it. So we are just on just about every platform. Just find us, search, share, and tune in and support us. We do accept donations. PayPal.me/Kristan, Kristan, T. Harris, and my Venmo is the same. All right, that's all I got for you guys. You guys stay blessed, and thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. And as always, guys, you'll be able to find this episode on the TNAShow.com, Apple Podcasts in a week when I finally get around to editing these, as well as Spotify. So thanks again for watching Polish American Brotherhood. Adam Francisco. We'll see you guys probably tomorrow.
Well, hey there, boys and girls, ladies and gents, theys and theirs. This is Tara Shapansky from the Polish American Brotherhood and Adam Francisco from Be Free My Sheeple. And you're listening to the T&A